we will go ahead and get started. This is making me loud. No, so we're actually live streaming this, so this mic actually is connected to the audio, but you're on camera anyways. So we are at the first year transition panel. I feel really weird. We're the first year transition panel, and so we have 4 alumni, recent alumni, who can definitely speak to what it was like to be in our shoes. And so I definitely want to make this one a little more conversational because there was such a small group. So definitely feel free to interject and ask questions. I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves and kind of tell you a little bit about where they are right now and how they got there, I guess, maybe a little bit. Maybe your elevator pitch, if you will, about what you do. So I will start. And what year you graduated.
Okay. Hey, y'all. My name is Caitlin Story. I graduated December of 2015, so pretty recently. And I currently am the marketing coordinator for Southland Electrical Supply in Burlington, North Carolina. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm currently a photographer, graphic designer, social media coordinator. I kind of do a little bit of everything. So yeah, is that elevator pitchy enough for you? Awesome. Cool.
I'm Christian Morgan. I was a broadcast major. I graduated in May of 2014, and I'm currently the assistant music director and air personality for Rock 92 and KZL in Greensboro.
Hard to follow that one. I'm Sarah Casper. I graduated as well, same time as Caitlin, from the PR program. I am the social media specialist for Wyndham Capital Mortgage. We're an online mortgage lender housed in Charlotte. And I dressed up today for you because I'm not very client-facing, so I wear leggings every day.
I'm Olivia Easley. I graduated August 2015, also in PR, and I'm currently the marketing manager for Novaris, which is an air purification technology startup in Raleigh, North Carolina. Is that it? Is that everything? Okay, cool. Awesome. So should I start down here or pass it back down? Okay, so just talking about the first year transition. The reason why I was really excited to be on this panel is because I actually started out when I first graduated doing an internship. That was kind of the last piece of my degree, was that summer after May 2015, and actually just didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I loved PR, interacting with people, creating relationships, but didn't know what industry, if I wanted to be in-house, agency. So I hooked up with my cousin who did marketing out in Park City, Utah for a ski lodge. And they contracted this PR agency occasionally to help them out with things. So she linked me up with her, and she was looking for an intern that summer. So I moved out to Park City, worked with a lot of food, travel, tourism clients. Absolutely loved it, but the resort life town was not for me. Came back to Raleigh and kind of lost my footing. I still did freelance work in Utah and was a communications manager and just did everything online for a restaurant association, but just sort of, that's where all my connections were. That's where I had done all my networking. And so moving back to Raleigh was having trouble, finding those connections. So I joined the Raleigh Public Relations Society, and lo and behold, the first lunch I went to, a recruiter was there with a staffing agency that I was hoping to work with. It's called The Creative Group. And so I worked with her, and she got me my first job. And so with all of that, that was probably a year's time with all of that happening, that I felt like coming back here and being on this panel and just making it know that it's never too early to start networking. It's never too early to start putting yourself out there, joining organizations, whether it's here or even after you graduate, that are suited to either PR, other things you're interested in. That's sort of, where I shot myself in the foot, but I learned a lot from that and was able to come back from that. And now I have a whole society of people that even if I lost my job tomorrow, would be there behind me, helping me either find a job or a loop in their company where they could bring me on. And through all of that, I've found, I majored in PR, but now I'm doing marketing, and I'm similar to Caitlin, where wearing a lot of different hats, doing social media, a lot of writing, a lot of graphic design, and I never would have found that if I didn't sort of have that journey of figuring out really what I wanted. So also, it's okay if you don't know right now, and if the first internship or job you take is just kind of puts you on a journey to learn more about yourself and what you want, that's okay.
So, my story is very similar, but it is very different in that when I started school, I was an elementary education major. I'm only a semester away from completing my elementary ed degree. However, I looked in the mirror one day and I was like, I'm not meant to be a teacher, and it's more disservice to the students than it is to me to continue this. I was very involved on campus. And that's where I had discovered a love for programming and events and PR, working with Appalachian Popular Programming Society. I'd also been working with my town's Parks and Recreation Department doing their events for years, and I absolutely loved it. And so that's when I made the decision to switch to public relations. I, however, almost had 4 years of school under my belt and a lot of money to pay off. So I decided to take a year off, pay off my student loans that had accrued, and go back. And so I did not finish college until I was 24 years old. However, I'm in an industry that I love, and I love how in communications you can start doing one thing, and then next thing, wake up the next day and you're in a totally different industry and doing something completely different. So when I first graduated, I was offered a temporary position with the Parks and Recreation Department that I'd been working for years, and that's where I think relationships are very important. Like whether you have mentors or past employers or people that you've worked with, or just even friends and family, making sure that you're keeping those relationships fresh, and was how I was able to find a job immediately after college. I mean, the day after I graduated, I was back in the office at the Parks and Rec Department, mini little Leslie Knope helping out my boss, and she's literally Leslie Knope. It's just like the show, if you're wondering. Working for a Parks and Rec Department, and helping them with the events, and helping them kind of take ownership of marketing, and marketing their events on social media to save money, and just helping them with that. And so I did like a 3-month contract with them, because I already had a relationship with them. I was able to jump right in, and then I did events with the Mint Museum. I was their special events coordinator. I always had a love for nonprofits. And so while I was working in events, this is something I'd obviously been doing for years, something I had done when I wasn't a student as well. And I was freelancing on the side. So whether that was doing pro bono work for nonprofits or picking up blogging jobs, they're everywhere if you look hard enough, copywriting positions online. That's when I decided I wanted to really pursue more of a traditional marketing, PR, or digital position. And I was literally had gotten home from a wedding, 1 o'clock in the morning, filled out my application for Wyndham Capital Mortgage, and I got a call the next day from their recruiter. So not everyone gets that lucky, but I'm very blessed to have been given this opportunity. And so now I do all of the digital marketing for Wyndham Capital, because we recently went through a layoff, and that's just in the mortgage and financial industry the way it is. And so my department was cut, and now I'm wearing a lot of different hats. And so I help manage our website, do the social blog, all of that. And it's just a great learning experience. And that's what you'll see out of school. I mean, I've been out of school for, I guess it's a little over a year. Thanks for doing the math. Thank you. And
It's burned in my brain.
See, I lose track, and I've learned so much in that short amount of time than my 5 years of school. But yeah, so I think a good theme is relationships and networking are a huge thing, and then always making sure that you're staying educated on top of the industry. And then, if you find something you're more passionate about, pursue it. and don't ever feel like you need to settle for something. But make sure whether you take a job out of college waiting tables, but you're doing something on the side that you really love that's going to put you in a good spot. It's definitely something to keep in mind. And that's what I told myself every day while I was waiting tables, saving up money to go back to school. I guess I'll pass it along.
So PR was not my main focus, and so I was in broadcasting. So, the jobs are a little bit different, but making the transition from college to the professional world, is all the same thing, and we have to work at the same things and do the same things. So, one thing I'll piggyback off of is saying get involved, figure out what you like, what you don't like, and one of the best things to help you figure that out is an internship. I was fortunate enough to be able to get a part-time job at the stations I'm at when I was a sophomore here. So I did a lot of weekends, a lot of holiday kind of stuff. I mean, there were times that I drove down on Friday and did a Friday night show on Rock 92 and came back up for football on Saturday. But you do things to make it happen. And if you're looking at jobs and you're able to get a part-time job or an internship close by, whether it's in Charlotte or Greensboro, those are two places that are easily, just a couple hour drive. If you can make that happen, if you can get involved and get your foot in the door and make yourself seen to whatever company, whether it's at a radio station or a TV station or a marketing firm or, or a PR firm or whatever it may be, anything to get your foot in the door and get noticed is a plus. It sounds crazy, but I tell people, especially in the broadcast world, if you can get in and take out the trash, it sounds crazy, but it gets you noticed. And I'll tell you, I listened to Rock 92 growing up and said, I always at some point or another want to work there, want to work for those stations in some capacity. I don't know if it'll be part-time. I don't know if it'll be, a 30-year career there or a couple of years and then I'll move on somewhere else, but I want to work there. So I listened religiously to the stations and learned who was on the stations, who worked there. If they were going to be out at an event somewhere on Saturday, I was there hanging out beside the tent, and I'm sure they were like, who's this joker who keeps showing up here? But you do, and then they learn who you are, and they also, I remember them saying, whether Dave Aiken, like, who's familiar with Greensboro? Is anybody familiar with Greensboro? So where Natty Greens is and about Natty Greens. So they said, whether Dave Aiken likes to hang out on Fridays about 5 o'clock at Natty Greens. I was like, y'all, it's Friday. It's 5 o'clock. We're going to go to Natty Greens. So I walk in, and Dave Aiken is at, he said, Dave Aiken sits at the right end of the bar. He has his own seat. And I walk in, like you can see all the way down the bar. And I said, sure enough, I said, that's Dave Aiken down there. So I walked up. I said, hey, you're Dave. He's like, yeah, who are you? And I said, he told him who I was, and I've been following, the stations and trying to come out to their events. So then we fast forward to my sophomore year. I was really into radio, really wanted to do radio, and said, I really need to do something to get my foot in the door, or at least start making a connection for when I graduate. At that point, I was a sophomore. I was like, man, I'm not going to have a job, and I still got 2 years to figure it out. So I was the person who was, freaking out. I was like, I got to be ready. As soon as I graduate, I want to work, be done. I don't have to worry about it. So I went in and got an interview for an internship, and went in for the internship. And they were, bringing different people around, and our PD, which program director, Jason, called down to Dave. He's like, Dave, why don't you come up here and meet this guy, who's interviewing for an intern. I was like, that must be Dave Aiken. So he comes in the door, and he's like, Christian, what's up? And Jason's like, you know this guy? He's like, yeah, he found me at Natty Greens one day. So, but, my whole point, right, in a not stalker way. The whole point I'm trying to make is, see what's going on, see what the company you're interested in is doing, see what the people who are working there are doing. If they've, PR's a thing, you're out in front of people. If you figure out where they're out in front of people, you can go and you can meet, you can shake some hands, meet some people, put some names with some faces, and vice versa for them. You're already a leg up in the industry. And so, she was saying, you don't have to have it all figured out as soon as you graduate. Obviously, I grew up and came through the program, the broadcasting program, 100% set on radio. So I was working part-time in radio and said, okay, I'm fortunate enough to have a part-time job in one area of broadcasting. I really have never done anything in TV, so let me try to figure that out. So I was able to get an internship at our local Fox affiliate, which is Fox 8 in High Point, and said, okay, I'm working part-time in radio. I can do this internship in TV and figure out what I really like. Because before, I was 100% radio. I said, TV, whatever. So I did the internship in TV and was like, wow, this is really... I really enjoy this a lot. And then I had to kind of step back and say, So do I want to make my career in radio, or do I want to make my career in TV? Fortunately, those two things kind of go hand in hand. They're a breed of their own, but they work together. And so I actually had more job offers for TV than I did for radio. But, and I say I had more, I had 2 or 3, and I had sent out 150, applications, and maybe 20 of those I'd heard back from, and about 5 of those I got, interviews out of. So I would say, I got a TV offer in Roanoke, Virginia. I got two offers at the same station. I didn't take either one of them. And the whole thing was, hey, I really like TV, but if I do this, then I've got to leave radio 100%. So what I've really focused in and honed in on now is making my full-time career in radio, and then being able to do some part-time TV stuff with our local Fox affiliate and our NBC affiliate, however that ends up playing out. But the two work together, so I'm able to do one and also have a hand in the other one. And so you don't have to have it all figured out. Doing an internship is primo. Part-time job is even better because you get paid for it. There's not that many communications internships that are going to pay you, which is the unfortunate thing. But you're able to figure out what you like and figure out what you really want to do. And if you go to a company where you've connected with the people and been in contact with the people, a lot of times they are more than willing to help you out. When I was hired full-time after I graduated, they said, hey, this might not be the position that you really want or what you really want to do, but, you've worked here, you've been in, part-time throughout college, you've showed an ethic, a work ethic and an interest and a passion for working here. So if you find something else that we can help you with, that we can help you, advance in your career, then we will. And so when I got one of those TV offers after I was full-time there, 2 or 3 months, I went to them and said, hey, I've got this offer elsewhere. I just want to let you guys know because I know you said you'd help me. And they're like, we'll help you move into that realm if you want to. And if you're able to stay on and do some part-time stuff here, whether it, be remotely or whatever it is, we'll help you with it. Anyway, long story short, I figured out that I wanted to stay in radio. But now, through that, in the market, I've made connections with the other radio stations who are our competitors. So I don't work with them. We don't like them. But in the same thing, it's a friendly competition. Even though TV is a completely different market, completely different realm than radio, we're able to have connections with our 2 stations between the 2. And so whatever company, whether it be a marketing firm or whatever, you're able to make connections both personally across, what I call across the aisle or across the street for us. And also, within the company, the companies have connections back and forth with each other. And so if you make connections at one, chances are you're going to make connections at the other one. So I guess the biggest thing to making the transition, to kind of wrap that all back in, I would say is get your foot in the door. That's the first thing you got to do. And people talk about it's who you know, but in the communication world, it's who knows you too. Broadcasting especially, I know I speak specific to that a lot just because that's what I'm in. But the communication world as a business is a huge business, but the world and the amount of people in it is a small thing. So get in, know people, make sure they know you, and then don't burn any bridges is the other thing. Be memorable for the right reasons. This is a business that once you burn a bridge, the next place you go probably knows somebody or knows somebody that has something to do with the organization where you were. So I would say, make connections, and if you leave on good terms. And like I said, when you transition from college to the professional world, people are more than willing to help you out and help you try to figure it out. You don't have to have it all figured out at once.
Cool. I went last in the first panel too, so I'll try to do this one justice also. But I guess my first year transition is I come from a very, very similar background as Sarah because I was originally a history secondary education major. I went all the way through all 4 years and was 2 weeks away from receiving my student teaching placement, where I was going to be sent, and called my parents and said, well, I did a thing called I already submitted the paperwork for a major change, and please don't kill me. That's pretty much how it went. Yeah. So then I went on to do the most breakneck paced crash course of public relations that I could have probably ever imagined in 3 semesters and 2 summer sessions, and came out whole on the other side. But, you know, what I really stressed when we talked earlier and what I want to stress to y'all now is a little bit different from what they were talking about, but kind of goes off of the you don't have to have it all figured out. I had all this pressure that I had put on myself because, you know, I'd spent 4.5 years doing education, and I had, you know, like you said, like essentially an entire degree that I was 1 semester away from completing. I had to go complete basically a residency, and then it was mine, and then had decided to essentially throw it all away and do something completely different, something that ultimately I feel like my talents were better suited for. And, you know, I really felt like I had something to prove. I had to prove to my family and my friends and like people who knew me that I just did not make the stupidest mistake of my life. So I put a lot of pressure on myself, and like, I have to find a job now. I don't care what it is. I don't care how much the pay is. Like, I will do it. So my first job, I was a substitute teacher with Caldwell County. And also I worked at Barnes & Noble in Hickory with a business development team, which basically works with schools and government agencies and libraries and things like that, doing events like where the authors come and do a signing, or corporate sales. So a little bit inside and outside sales kind of stuff like that. Basically, I had gone and interviewed for a retail position, and they were like, well, you're a little overqualified. I mean, we'll hire you, but we have this other thing you might want to do as well. So I was kind of doing both of those things, but was only getting the compensation of somebody who worked retail. So, like you were saying, don't burn a bridge. Don't burn a bridge with your professors either, because when this was happening, you know, if something feels, I don't want to say wrong because it wasn't malicious, but, you know, when you don't have the experience to back it up, you know, people can pass things off as you're getting experience, or, you know, whatever they want to call it, because you don't have experience in your field to do this job that, you know, isn't really what you're looking for. And so I called Dr. Pope and, you know, I left her a message, and I was just like, do you have 10 or 15 minutes? I just really want to run something by you. And she was like, basically the moral of the story of that conversation was just like, you know, if it feels wrong, if it doesn't feel right, then why are you doing it? You know, like, if it doesn't feel like they're valuing you or the skill set that you have, or they're not using it effectively, then it's okay to walk away. So I was very fortunate to have that conversation with her and get the confidence to, you know, start applying and looking elsewhere. Luckily, I was offered a different job before I had to like really confront that issue head on. But, you know, don't panic and get yourself into something that, you know, you feel like you have to prove something. And so I need a job in my field right now, and, you know, I'll do whatever it takes to get it. Because while, yes, you're going to gain experience anywhere you go, you know, sometimes it's just not worth it to put yourself in a situation where you're not being valued or your talents aren't being really used to their fullest potential. So the job I received after that, I was in charge of, I worked for a furniture design company in Hickory. And basically I was in charge of every single domestic order that came in from all of the sales reps that were located all over the country. So any order that they sent in, Caitlin touched it. So I guess the point of that is, you know, you're going to learn something wherever you go. You're going to get a skill set, even if it's not something in your field. Believe me, you will learn a lot about crisis communication when you have a sales rep panicking on the other end and they're yelling at you to fix it. You will learn how to do crisis communication. But I guess ultimately, you know, everything's a journey and everything's a process. And so, you know, you want to look for good opportunities that you're going to be able to learn and grow from people who, you know, really have your best interests at heart. But don't feel like you have to compare yourself to, you know, everybody else that you're in class with, or, oh my God, we're in senior seminar and everyone has a job and I'm the only one that didn't have a job. Like, that was me. Like, everybody we had senior seminar together, and it was like every single person had a job, and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, am I not good enough? Am I not smart enough? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, have I taken the wrong classes? Like, what do I not have? Because something better is coming. So you just have to, I guess, the thing that I have learned in my first year transition is that, you have to write your own story. You have to block all the accomplishments and everything. You want to be happy for the people that you're friends with and, make those connections and keep those connections strong. But you have to be in charge of your own story and how it's going to pan out for you. So that's what I kept telling them in the first session is don't panic, because we just went to lunch and we were like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only person who felt that way, or oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one that was happening to. And you're sharing these experiences, but I think Olivia this morning said something about people aren't going to put that on Instagram. They're not going to put their
just moved home with my parents.
right, right, like they're not going to glamorize the part of their life that isn't, well, I have this perfect degree and I got the perfect job and like here I am. So just keep an open mind and know that these opportunities are coming. So they're out there, but don't pigeonhole yourself to where, you get in a situation that you might not want to be in. I guess the other thing too is, we've all talked a little bit about wearing multiple hats. And I've been very fortunate. The job that I'm now working in, I've only been there since July, so a very short amount of time. But I'm already a part of a hiring committee pretty much for a position in our department. And, we're seeing, it's kind of cool because, like, I'm fresh out, but I get to see, like, this really weird, like, judgmental side of, like, reading through resumes and all that kind of stuff. But, be versatile. Take as many classes as you possibly can. Learn as many skills as you possibly can, because right now, I'm a public relations professional, but I'm a graphic designer. That's 85% of what I'm doing right now. I'm a photographer. We don't have a photographer right now. He got a different job and moved to a different state, and that's who we're searching for. And my boss and I, we became overnight photographers just like that. So, be adaptable and don't, well, I'm a PR person. I do press releases and copywriting, and that's what I do. That's great, but you have to be able to have something else. You need to know how to design. You need to know how to use Adobe Suite or like whatever it may be, because ultimately everybody's going to look the same on paper. Everybody that's going to apply is going to have the same communications degree, whatever their concentration was in, and they're all going to start to look the same. Believe me, those resumes, I'm like, wait a minute, didn't we already read this one? No, it's a new guy. So, make yourself stand out in what you're able to do and then what you're willing to do. If they ask you something in the interview and you're like, I have no experience, the correct answer is, I will learn how. Always be willing to go above and beyond, because the more versatile you make yourself, the more hireable you are. And then ultimately, when you are hired, that really equates to a lot of job security if you're willing to take on multiple challenges. So a thing, I was talking with him about at lunch was, continue your education. Take a class here and there, take something online, get a certification. If you end in May when you graduate, or December, or whenever it is, you're in for a world of trouble, because there are people coming out right after you that are going to be way more competitive because they, just finished school, or they're continuing to learn in other areas. So I think that's one thing that, I guess that's the second thing that I've really learned in the first year, is to be as versatile as you possibly can, because it will pay off and you will stand out when everyone else looks the same. So I think that's about it. Okay, cool.
Used a really good word. Anybody know what it is? Starts with an A. Yeah, great. Adaptable. Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. Solid. Especially in this whole communication world, okay? Adapting to change is huge, especially digitally. I'm not hating on the old folks, but the old generation in this business, in the communication world, is aging out. They have no interest in learning the digital age. They have no interest in learning about social media or how to market it or anything like that. And they don't have any interest in being creative anymore. They're set. This is how we've always done it, and this is how we're going to do it until I retire and move on. So that's where where we come into play, really coming out of college and being young. It should be second nature to be able to adapt to digital change, and especially social media marketing and that kind of thing. Do that and do it well. When you see the changes, especially in the radio and the broadcasting industry right now, that's the thing we're really juggling and truly trying to figure out what to do with. And there's so much we can do with it, and so much about our industry has changed. I mean, you think about apps and streaming and that whole thing is huge for us. And if we don't, and I'm just talking from personal experience here, if we don't adapt and we don't change to that, then we get thrown in the trash pretty much. So adapt to the digital change, use it to your advantage, and come up with creative ways to market it and to use it. I know now in the broadcast industry specifically, we have, graduated from that age of this big boomy guy behind the mic, that knows everything and he's telling you what to do. Now it's more of a personal connection, having a conversation with the person on the other end. And, people, used to, a studio was a closet with maybe a light switch, and it probably smelled like smoke, and there was old crusty buttons everywhere. Now it's not like that. People want to see what's going on. People want to see behind the scenes of what you're doing, what your studio looks like, what you're doing in commercial breaks, how you're playing the music, and that, especially, for us. And the other thing is, for us, when we say, used to, you'd say that the guy was a DJ, and then it went from DJ to jock. The person on the air was a jock. And now it used to be air talent, and now it's personality. And the way that social media and the digital world is changing, it's really, really easy to be yourself and to be a personality on the air. And, we preach to everybody at, where I work is, you're an air personality, and you're on the air in the afternoons. You're on the air in the middle of the day from 11 to 3. That's what show I do on Rock 92. I don't wake up in the studio at 11 and go to sleep in the studio at 3 and then wake up the next day at 11 and go back to sleep at 3. So people want to see what's going on. People are really, and social media and the digital age has really made this a priority. People are nosy. They want to know what's going on. They want to know about your personal life. I don't go by my real name on the air. I go by Chase Myers on the air. And part of that is safety reasons. Part of that is Christian Morgan is a lot to say on the air, and it's harder for the listener to remember. And so when they look at, my Chase Myers page, okay, Chase posts from 11 to 3. What else does he do? This guy's got to do something, so they're nosy. Give the people, give them what they want. You don't have to post everything. You don't have to give them everything. But, post throughout the day. If you're at a concert or somewhere, post that. People love to see that stuff. They love to see what you do and what you're doing. And so my whole point about that is, use social media. Use it to your advantage. And right now we're coaching some of our older talent in the building on how to use this stuff. And if any of you guys are ever in Greensboro and you listen to two guys named Chris Kelly just got a smartphone for the first time. He's been on this old flip phone. And he he doesn't have a clue how to use Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. And, he's just like, I'd rather not, but he has so much that you have so much that you can do with it. So really adapt to the digital change. It's huge in communication. Adapt. That's a great word.
So I work in digital marketing, so I'd love to kind of bounce off of that. It is definitely shifting how we do communications. And you see it not in just radio, you see it in public relations and in journalism. Now reporters are expected to tweet a certain amount of times a day. All of your stories are posted online within minutes. Editing is much faster than it used to be, so you have to be fast, you have to be quick, and you have to be efficient. And so I think adaptability is a huge thing that goes into that as well. And then, it really depends on your industry as well, like whether you're utilizing your marketing and your online presence is really going to help you stand out as a brand. So kind of a case study, my company is very new to social media, and I'm helping to kind of build it out, give them more of an online presence. But then there's companies like Movement Mortgage who are huge. I'm sure most of you in the room have heard of them at some point. They're a multi-billion-dollar industry that has boomed in the past 5 years because they have understood the essence of having communications, having an online presence, humanizing a product, which is a mortgage, and that's what makes people want to interact with their brand. And so you always have to stay on top of, like, how are brands taking advantage of digital. I think this year it's Facebook Live is, a big thing. And that's also shifting how we do journalism as well. press conferences are no longer a recorded thing you view later. They're immediately viewed by people. How media is interpreting news. I mean, think about the riots that were in Charlotte. People were recording them off of their phone while watching those live feeds while watching the news. And so, it's a huge impact, and it's a huge thing. And like he was saying, we have an advantage in knowing that. And then I kind of want to backtrack and go back to a key theme I've kind of heard for all of us, is that in our first year, we've done a lot of different things. And where we started is not where we ended. You're not going to find your dream job the minute you get out of college, and that's okay. And if you are only in a position for 3 months and leave, it's no longer, I think, seen for you as a bad thing necessarily. And so I know that's a huge thing that used to be preached, is you need to stay with the company, you need to invest with them. Well, if they're not investing in you, that doesn't mean you need to stay with them. And that's part of why I chose to leave my last company and go to the company I'm at now. And so I was only in that position for 3 months, and yet I still found a job and got hired. And these are things you can be transparent about in your interviews as well. And so if you're not getting the full experience you need, if you feel like you're not getting the education you need, because that's a big thing, you're constantly learning. What I knew coming out of school is not what I know now. And if you're not getting supported, look for something else. Find a different opportunity, and those opportunities will be presented to you if you look hard enough.
I had stuff that I could add, but I'd love to hear from you guys because I think we have like 7 minutes left or something. Okay, cool. So if you guys have questions, if not, I'll keep talking. But would love to hear from you guys. If you guys
I'll add one thing real fast. Other than no questions.
You might, Todd.
One thing I will add, she talks, we're talking about being adaptive and being open to change and using the digital world. Communications is a thing that is, she said it's always changing. Digital has really changed that. But I think the key is when you're looking for jobs and you're applying to jobs, this is a creative industry. So showcase that. And I preach this to, all the broadcast people, but even PR, journalism, whatever it may be, whenever you send your resume, don't just send it. Okay? Follow up. If it says don't call, call. Okay? It's not gonna keep you out of it. Call people, or even before you apply, I didn't see the position online, whatever. Call them, leave them a message, because chances are they won't answer, they don't know who you are. Leave them a message, tell them what you're interested in, tell them you're gonna follow up via an email, mail it, and then apply for it online. Okay?
And
Be creative.
Look for direct people. So, like, say you find the position on Indeed, that doesn't mean someone's going to look at it. Now, you could take 2 seconds to go to that company's website, look at the job posting, and find that they have a direct person you emailed that position for, or they could have a recruiter in-house. That's going to get your resume seen faster than just applying through any kind of blank form or
Well, just going off of that as well, I saw a really awesome position with Edelman PR in Seattle and was like, this is awesome. And I was looking up the position on LinkedIn and saw that there was an App alumni who was working in the Seattle office in Edelman. And I reached out to him, and I initially was afraid to do that because I was like, I don't even know him. The only thing we have in common is go Mountaineers. But he loved it. He actually responded with go Neers. Thanks for reaching out. And I got to the very last round of interviews, and they ended up filling it internally. But regardless, I'm so glad that I reached out to him. And even though I was nervous, I know that if an alum reached out to me right now, or not an alum, a current student, I would do everything I could to help them. And if I couldn't,
It would make my day.
yeah, I would try to find somebody.
family metaphor is
It's real.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that resonated when we were talking on this panel earlier is be thoughtful about where you're applying. when we're in this feeling a lot of pressure to get a job, we're just shoving ourselves out there, and we're using the same cover letter and the same resume because it's just such a high volume and we're just trying to get hired. But you end up applying for positions that you're probably not even going to want, but you're so bent on getting hired that you're going to interview and say, well, I don't even really want this. So be thoughtful about where you're applying. Think about it and notice their values. Take into account what they're looking for and incorporate it into your cover letter and into your resume. And we were all talking about how we have different versions of our resume for different kinds of companies and different people that we're going to. And that's something that I wish I had done. And I was telling them earlier, I applied for a job as PR specialist, but really I was going to be pushing products at Costco. And it wasn't a PR job whatsoever, but it was because I had just applied anywhere. And I think if we take the time, or if you take the time to really figure out where you want to be or what industries you're interested in, your time is going to be spent better and more valuable crafting your application around that. So, yeah.
So, did you guys, when you guys were in, obviously, like a lot of us have to create like 8 portfolios and stuff. Did you guys like create like Wix websites, and do you guys like actually still use them, and like, is it like really helpful?
Yeah, we talked about that on the last panel. Like, I don't use a portfolio because I don't really think it's pretty or like user friendly. Yeah, so I personally have a Squarespace site that I really like. I know a lot of people like Wix. I had a Weebly at one point, but hands down, I send it with every application, even if they don't ask for it. I send them my e-portfolio because, yeah, you can put all this stuff on paper, but like, what really can you do? And what does it look like? You know, if you are talking about your graphic design work that you can do, what does that look like? Your voice might not be what they're looking for, but they need to see your writing. They need to know what you're doing, or they're not even going to consider it because they don't even know, and they have other applicants that are going to have that. You guys can go on this too.
No, you're doing
Okay.
Well, what I was saying,
Sorry. Like I was saying earlier, you know, I somehow, my manager and I really get along well, and she was like, I want you to help us like do this hiring search for this new photographer. And I can tell you just about like 9 out of 10 people, unless their resume was really good, and I mean killer, like holy crap, I wish I would have made that beautiful. If their portfolio was not attached, which obviously for a photographer is kind of silly, but you would be surprised, it went in the garbage. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody, like I said, everybody is going to start to look the same. It's all going to start to blur together. Like, who is that person again? Who is Olivia? Like, what did she do? Like, if you don't have something that says, this is who I am, like, this is my product, like this industry, like you are constantly, like your job is creating a product all the time, whether it's your words or your social media presence or whatever it is, that's a product. And they need to see that, because nothing else is going to really differentiate you from anybody else that graduated in 2017 from Appalachian State from the communications department with a concentration in X. You know, so I just think set yourself apart, because that's the one downfall is the economy is getting better, yes, but the job market is getting more saturated with people who are very qualified, maybe not as much experience, but are qualified as far as their education goes. So definitely when you're applying, like they said, really personalize it, because it does make a huge difference, and it will get you noticed. You might think it's a waste of time. You're like, oh my God, like I cannot spend one more moment on InDesign making this resume again. I can't, but you can, and you should, because after I was hired, I was talking to my manager, and she was like, your resume was just so pretty. I just loved it. I just loved it. Like, I wish my resume looked like that. So that I kept coming back to that one. And I was like, hey girl, like, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Like, A, for letting me know it was effective, and B, like, you know, that's what got her attention. That's what, you know, set me apart from other people. So, yeah, definitely develop your portfolio. Make sure that it's relevant examples. Make sure they're dynamic examples. Don't make it all look the same either. You know, and even if your portfolio does not quite line up with whatever their job description is or whatever your main responsibilities would be, I mean, I said earlier, I was like, I know we don't like the word spin, but you can spin just about anything that you've made into some way how you can apply that skill to make them better. And I think that's a really good tactic to use. If you don't know how to do that yet, take a hard look at your portfolio and then line it up against some of these things that you're applying for. Okay, well, this doesn't really fall under this category, but what did I learn when I made this, when I did this project, when I worked in this group, when we did this campaign example, how can I use that to fulfill these requirements that they're asking me for?
A little bit of a different take on it as far as the tactic, as far as sending it out and stuff. Your website and your e-portfolio and all that stuff is great, but don't live and die by it. If somebody wants you, if you send an email to somebody applying for a job, whoever it be, employers want the best person. They want to hire them quick. They don't want to they don't want to waste time going through, resumes and reading and clicking on this and going through that all day long. So one thing I would say One thing I would say is if you're sending an email to somebody, send a link to the website or the portfolio, whatever it is, in the email. But whatever the most important document is, if it's a photography job, whatever your best pictures and your best work are, attach the actual file to the email. And the reason is, if you send them a website, it's an extra thing that they have to go in, they have to click on, they have to look through. So the most important stuff, if you're able to, if the file, is if you're able to send the file, send the actual file, and then send a link to your website or your portfolio. Because if it's there, it's just one less thing that they've got to go and find.
I think it's also important to highlight all of your skills, because even though you're being hired for one thing, they might pick you because you have another skill set they could eventually use. So why I got my job at Wyndham is, even though it's a digital marketing and a heavy marketing position, they like that I have PR experience. I now manage all of them. Granted, we don't have a lot of them, but I can do press releases and other things, and they wanted that kind of tangible experience. They also like that I had experience with events, and they threw me on the culture committee, and I do internal events for our employees. And so they're going to pick that. Brittany, who's in our marketing department, she was a news producer before she came to Wyndham, and even though she does mostly Excel and design all day long, because she had video experience, they hired her because they wanted someone to be able to do videos in-house eventually, and that's now what she's doing part-time at work. So these are all things to keep in mind. Don't sell yourself on just one thing. Sell yourself on all the skills you have. Is there any other questions, though, before we keep?
Well, I think that was wonderful. If there's any other questions, awesome. So I guess we'll give our panelists now.
If any of you guys are coming to the